Today's reading is from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentary on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita by J. Donald Walters. Faith is a call to prayer. Prayer is a call to faith. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 7 and 21, we read, "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Verily I say unto you, if you have faith and doubt not, if ye shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. In all things, whatsoever ye ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." Paramahansa Yogananda showed by his own example that prayer is power, provided we believe deeply in that power. When our thoughts and feelings are strongly focused and then united in growing awareness to the divine presence within, they can bring even seemingly unrealistic wishes to fulfillment. When Paramahansa Yogananda was in charge of his school in Ranchi, India, he took the boys on occasional outings to the surrounding countryside. There was a waterfall not far away, he told Swami Kriyananda, where I took them sometimes. It was dangerous to cross there, but I would cry out to the boys, "Do you believe in God?" "Yes," they would shout back enthusiastically. And so we always crossed in safety. Years later, after I'd gone to America, one of the teachers tried to do the same thing, but he lacked spiritual power. One of the boys slipped on a rock and was drowned. Thus the master explained, belief alone is not enough. It must be united to one-pointed awareness, which leads to self-realization. The Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, underscores the necessity for such one-pointed concentration. Whenever the mind, fickle and restless, wanders off from its concentration, let the meditating yogi withdraw it resolutely, spurning every distraction, no matter how alluring, and bring it back again and again under the control of the self. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
What a lovely topic. Yesterday I kept repeating the title of it to myself. Faith is a call to prayer, prayer is a call to faith. Such a wonderful reminder. And it gives me the opportunity to tell some of my favorite prayer stories. And the one I want to start off with, you probably recognize many of these because they're some of my favorite stories altogether, because they're ones that over and over again have inspired me. The one I want to start with is one of Mother Teresa, and it takes place many years ago, obviously. I saw it on a film about her life, where a BBC interviewer is interviewing her, and she has been going into an embattled country. I think it may have been Afghanistan at that time. I don't know. I can't remember. to get refugees and to bring them across the border. And because there's quite a lot of warfare happening, the reporter asks her about this, how she's going to do this. And she says to him simply, well, I've asked Our Lady for a ceasefire. And the reporter kind of, a little bit worldly. He's a seeker, but he still can't believe this. He kind of snorts a little bit. You see it on film. And he says, well, I think Our Lady might have other things on her plate, so to speak. Those weren't his exact words. And then they cut to the next, the filmmakers were so good, they cut to the next shot, and it's these trucks going across the border because there was a ceasefire to get the refugees and bring them back. And that speaks to several things that are at the heart of this reading. One is, we're told in this reading, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be open to you. The asking part, Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, whose teachings we follow here, counseled us as devotees, as seekers of truth in our prayer life to not to beg. He said that begging separates us from God, but that we should ask as a child of God because we are, in fact, children of God. And when we ask with that trusting faith, we bring ourselves closer to God. I was thinking the other day, and so you could see that in Mother Teresa's exchange with him, that complete trust that God was her very own, her nearest and dearest, and the ability to just ask for what we need in the full faith that it will come in its way, in its time. This part of the reading made me think, when I do these talks, I often find a lot of things that are in books, and I think, gosh, what's in my life that this relates to right now? And it made me think of our school, Living Wisdom School. And we have a constant parade of children coming into our office asking for water. Miss Christy, can I have some water? Miss Susan, can I have some water? Miss Usha, can I have some water? They would never think that we would just deny them water. They know that we're there to help them. They trust in us, and how much more our own Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, who's known us from the beginning of time and who's shepherding our souls. But a little bit more about that later on. So the second part, so asking in the right way, putting out what Yogananda called a prayer demand. But in that demand, it is like the loving demand of a child, not presumptuous and not full of ego, but just with that full confidence. So what's the seek part? The seek part is that in all of our prayers, if we want them to be effective, if we want to call on that divine presence, we live in an infinite universe, and we partake of whichever bandwidth of it we're in tune with. And so the masters are able to bring about seeming miracles because they're in tune with the full spectrum, and they're in tune with God's will. So here's another clue for us, to seek in our prayers, to be turning the prayer towards the will of God, towards the greater good, towards the most expanded awareness we can reach for, and invite God's presence into that. So in any situation, to think, what would be the prayer, as one of Yogananda's most advanced disciples, Gyanamata, said. An experience was coming to her that she couldn't avoid, and she thought she was desperately seeking. Part of her wanted to get away from it, but she knew that was not the divine will. And so she thought for a moment, and she prayed inwardly and asked God what was the prayer that he would accept. Isn't that an interesting thought? To be so turning your consciousness, it's like like a satellite or something, just turning till you find the spot where there's that divine resonance that you can pull in. She said she found the prayer that he would accept, and the prayer was, change no circumstance, change me. Beautiful prayer. She said that as soon as she prayed that, she said there are some experiences which the soul has which can't rightly be put into words, and the most accurate way she could convey it was as though she had been in a stuffy room and the window had been open. She felt herself instantly changed. So in our seeking, we want to expand our sense of faith. The reading talks about faith. And there's a difference between belief and faith. Belief is untested faith. It's just a thought that this might be true. And in fact, but what faith is, faith, I think Jesus said, it's the evidence of things unseen. But it's not the evidence of things unexperienced. It's taking our beliefs, taking where we are right now, taking whatever gifts and graces we've been given so far, whatever prayers have been answered, and remembering them. There's a passage in a book about one of Yogananda's other most advanced disciples, one of his longtime disciples, Dr. Lewis. And in there's a letter where he is reassuring Dr. Lewis. Dr. Lewis had had many experiences with him. The first time they met, he asked him about the passage in the Bible, if thine own I be single, and asked, can you show me what that is? And Yogananda showed him the great inner light. He had many experiences where he healed his daughter and other things like that, but then Yogananda went to another part of the country and he started having difficulties and was concerned. And Yogananda reminded him of all the things that had happened. So that's one thing that we can do, to tune into those experiences and remember, because they're there, which one of us has never had a prayer answered and felt that divine grace. But in order to grow the faith, we then need to step out, step just beyond the boundaries of what we know, and use our beliefs, test them in the cold light of day, and invite God's presence in to transform our experiences. There's a story of Shankaracharya and one of his disciples who became known as Padmapada. And the story of how that happened is that Padmapada was on one bank of a river and Shankaracharya was on the other. And Shankaracharya said to him, come to me. And Padmapada had had many experiences of his guru's grace and yearned to be with him. And so unhesitatingly, he just stepped out onto the water. Every place where his foot was, a lotus pad appeared to carry him safely across. I've thought about that story, and every time I read it, something different occurs to me. Of course, there's the obvious of the fact that he had faith in his guru, he'd seen his miraculous powers, but there are two other aspects that I found very thrilling, I guess, in this last reading. One was the come to me, come to me. And that's what's happening when we are asked to invoke our faith. Usually it's in circumstances when we're praying, perhaps for resolution for something, for greater understanding. And in that experience comes the invitation, come closer to me. The divine is saying, come closer to me. See how you can open yourself up through this experience. So that's another clue to our prayer. The other part was, well, actually there are probably three parts, but the other part was he was looking in his guru's eyes. And that kind of brings us to the third, the knock, the deep silence in meditation, the yogi whose fickle mind needs to be brought back again and again. In times of difficulty, I remember a fun story. Sorry, I keep digressing here, but things keep occurring to me. Someone from Ananda had an exchange with Swami Kriyananda, who was the founder of Ananda and direct disciple of Yogananda's. And she said, he shouted out to her, "Hi, how's your blah, blah, blah," revealing to all the public, everyone around, some difficult thing she was working on or that she was embarrassed about. And she said the only response she could come up with was to just lock eyes with him and say, "Yes." And that's often occurred to me in times of prayer or difficulty. If we can keep our eyes on the goal and resist the distractions of how other people are behaving in a situation or the difficulty that might be attendant upon what you're trying to do, the challenges of the circumstance, if we can just look forward, look up, draw in that ray of inspiration and divine guidance, then our faith is strengthened. Back to the little children. So they come into the office asking for water, and sometimes it's sure, they've been out playing, they've been running, we know they need water, and they have their water bottles with them, and it's great, here, take this water. Sometimes they come in and they're actually trying to get out of class. So they decide in the middle of yoga class, is Miss Bhakti here? She's not. That they need some water. She would chuckle if she heard this because she knows this happens. And so then we say to them, did your teacher say you could come out? Is your class, how much longer is there for your class? Well, 5 minutes. Do you think you could wait? I guess so. So it's not like with our faith, our prayers are answered immediately in exactly the way we want them to. Sometimes we need to wait. Sometimes something else needs to come into place. And sometimes there's something we need to go get that water bottle. We need to expand the vessel of our consciousness to hold what needs to come. So I wanted to talk a little bit about meditation and concentration and Om. Yogananda said that God answers all prayers, but answers restless prayers only a little bit. Kind of humorous. So, and the reading talks about one-pointed focus on God's growing presence within. And that comes, how does that concentration come in meditation? We talk a lot about stilling the mind, but really it's stilling the heart. If thoughts come through and there's nothing for them to hang onto, to latch onto, they don't bother us. But when they come and they find a resonance in some desire, some wish, some lack of attunement, then they can stick and grab a hold of us and create a little vortice of energy that we then have to get rid of. So there's a wonderful practice, a prayerful practice that Kriyananda recommended, that of, at the end of the day, taking all of our desires and just offering them up, as we did in the purification ceremony. That's just a symbol for inner purification ceremony, for things like Kriya Yoga, which we teach here, but also for just the practice of offering up to the point between the eyebrows, that calm center of communion within us, all of our wishes, our likes and dislikes, until we feel clear. And then when we are clear, when we're able to draw God's presence in meditation, still the mind, still the heart, feel that touch of the divine, that's the moment when our prayers are energized, because that's when we've come as closest as we can to the divine will. People like a Mother Teresa or other saints are able to invoke that power so that seemingly miraculous things can happen because they have trained their wills, opened their wills, so that their wills become in tune with that greater divine will. And in that, there is no separation. There's nothing that's impossible. There's nothing that can't happen for the good of all. And what if we can't do that in each moment? Yogananda said to pray and say, Lord, I want you, but my mind is restless. Help me to dive into thy ocean of consciousness. We were talking in autobiography class that I'm teaching right now about making prayer real. And I was sharing with them my practice of what I call backing it up till it's real. You go into meditation, prayer, and you say, Lord, I want you. And then you think, well, that's not really true. I want you 51%, but there's this other thing I want 49%. Help me to want you more. Help me to tip that balance. Lord, I would love to have devotion, but I don't yet. Help me to have devotion. Make it real, our prayers. God knows already. What he needs is for us to open ourselves so that that channel of communication can be strengthened, widened, and deepened until we get to the point where we say the most beautiful of all prayers, give thyself to me that I might give thee to all. I'd like to just end with a reading from Yogananda's book of prayer demands, Whispers from Eternity. Prayer demand for devotion. O Father, I hold my heart in my folded hands. Teach me to saturate my prayers with thy love. Give me the simple, sincere devotion toward thee of a child. Teach me to realize thee just behind the voice of my prayer. Teach me to feel thy breath flowing with my breath. Teach me to cognize thy presence in my emotions. Teach me to perceive thy wisdom in my understanding. Teach me to sense thy all-pervading life in my life. Oh, flood my senses with thy light. Let's just have a moment of silence.